Hello, this is Mr. Stein. In this video, we're going to start on section 6.2, slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. We're going to go through the vocabulary and some of the basics. By the end of this section, you should be able to determine the slope of a line parallel and perpendicular to a given line. So I tell you a line, I say here's the line. You should be able to tell me the slope of a parallel line and the slope of a perpendicular line. Judge if two lines are parallel or perpendicular given their slopes, or points on the line. Determine the location of points to a given parallel and perpendicular line. Determine the location of points to give yourself parallel and perpendicular lines. That one's a little bit wordy. We'll take a look at that later on once we get to the examples. Starting off with the vocabulary. You need to know what a negative reciprocal is. It's made up of two parts. The negative, which just means switch the sign, and reciprocal, which means reciprocate it like a fraction. So if 4, right here, 4 as a fraction is 4 over 1. The reciprocal of 4 over 1 is 1 over 4. This is just the regular reciprocal. The negative reciprocal is negative 1 over 4. 4 was positive, so negative reciprocal means you switch the signs. Negative 3. What's the negative reciprocal of negative 3? Well, negative 3 is negative, so its negative reciprocal is going to be positive. You swap signs. And we need to write this as a fraction. So our negative reciprocal is going to be plus 1 over 3. Let's look at the next one. 1 over 5. This is a positive 1 over 5. So our negative reciprocal is just going to be negative 5 over 1. Right? We swap the fraction around. Negative 3 over 4, our negative reciprocal is going to be a positive. And we swap our fraction around to get positive 4 over 3. That's negative reciprocal. All right, let's take a look at the slope of parallel lines. Let's calculate the slope of these two lines. Well, our first line, we look at our change in y, or a rise, over our run, change in x. It is plus 3 is our delta y, change in y, or a rise, and our change in x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our slope for this line is equal to 3 over 6, or 1 over 2. Now let's look at this line that's parallel. Do the same thing. Now I don't have to choose those points. I can choose this point right here because it's closer, but it's right at a proper intersecting point. And our delta y is equal to plus 1, and our delta x, or run, is equal to plus 2. So our slope of this line is equal to 1 over 2. So what can we say about parallel lines? Parallel lines have equal slopes. That's a rule. That's the law. You should know that. Here we have some perpendicular lines. You can see that they're perpendicular. They form at a right angle. Now you can say they're not going to have equal slopes. In fact, one of them is going to be a negative slope and one of them is going to be a positive slope. So if we have one line that's a negative slope, this perpendicular line is going to have a positive slope. But now let's check out the actual slopes. So we're going to start with this negative slope. And I'm only going to go down to here because it crosses exactly at that point. Our change in y, our rise, is equal to negative 2. And our change in x is equal to 1. So for this line, our slope is equal to rise over run, negative 2 over 1. All right, let's take a look at this green one. I'm going to go from here to here. Our change in y is equal to plus 2 and our change in x is equal to plus 4. So for our green one, our slope is equal to our rise plus 2 over a run of plus 4, which is equal to plus 1 over 2. Now let's take a quick look at this guy and this guy. They are negative reciprocals. So let's write that down. Perpendicular lines. I need to spell perpendicular correct, don't I? Perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals. Also, perpendicular lines, horizontal lines are perpendicular to vertical lines. So let's just take a quick look at that. Here's a horizontal line. The slope of our horizontal line is 0. Here's a vertical line. The slope of this line would be equal to its negative reciprocal. Well, 0 is neither plus nor minus, so it's just going to be 1 over 0, which is equal to an undefined. Okay, so know those two rules. Parallel lines have equal slopes. Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. Okay, now you should be able to determine slopes from points. You can see here I've got 2 points, and I've got this formula right here that we're going to use. So what we have to do is we have to label one point, point number 1. So I'm going to call the first one point number 1, the second one point number 2. Then this will be x sub 1 and y sub 1. This will be x sub 2 and y sub 2. So I'm going to use the formula. M is equal to y2, which is 7, minus y1, which is 3, all over 10 minus 2. So 7 minus 3 is equal to 4, over 10 minus 2 is equal to 8, which will equal 1/2, positive 1/2. Okay, now I showed you another way to do this. You can just take one of the points, 10, 7. This will be our rise. Sorry, this will be our run. This will be our rise. Subtract the point 2, 3 from it. And we will get 7 take away 3 is 4. 10 take away 2 is 8. We'll get a slope is equal to 4 over 8, which is equal to 1/2. Because the first column here, this is our rise column. The second column here is our run column. So you can also do this same formula in this way. All right, but now we've got a little bit different of a situation going on here. We're going to determine a point given a point and a slope. So let's look here. We have a slope of 2. We have a point. We have to find the location of this other point. So let's write out our formula. Slope is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Now let's see what we know. In this formula we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 variables. So we need to know 4 of them, then we can solve for the other ones. Well, we know 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Here's our 5th one that we don't know. So I'm going to call this point x2 and y, sorry, why am I calling it x2? I should call this x1 and y1. x1, y1, x2, y2. So now I substitute everything in. 2 is equal to 12, subtract 5, all over x minus 4. like this. Now let's start to simplify a little bit. 2 is equal to 7 divided by x minus 4. And I'm putting x minus 4 together. Now if you'll remember, when we have a number equal to a fraction, and we do not know the denominator, we can just swap these two guys around. So we can just rewrite this as x minus 4 is equal to 7 divided by 2. Then x is equal to 7 divided by 2 plus 4, or x is equal to 7.5. So this point will be at 7.5 on the x and 12 on the y. Okay, so you can just work with the formula. All right, I hope this is helpful for you. I hope you understand what the slopes of parallel lines are, that they're equal, and that perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals. I hope you can remember this formula and how to use it, and use it in this way here. If you have any questions, please put